The first part of the comprehensive brand strategy begins with the 4 Ps: product, placement, pricing, and promotion. These dimensions shape how the brand shows up in the world and how customers first experience its value. Product defines what the brand actually delivers: the forms, tiers, features, and benefits that solve problems or enrich people's lives. It is often the first and most tangible expression of the brand's promise. Placement determines how and where that value becomes accessible. Distribution choices influence visibility, convenience, and overall customer journey. Strategic placement ensures the brand appears in the right context, reinforcing how it intends to be perceived. Pricing communicates the value in both financial and psychological terms. It signals positioning, quality, and the trade offs customers should expect. Thoughtful pricing strengthens the coherence between what the brand offers and how it wants to be understood. Promotion completes the outward facing picture. The language, messages, and campaigns and experiences all work together to convey the brand's meaning. Effective promotion doesn't just describe the brand, it reinforces the associations that make the constellation clear. Each of the 4 Ps is essential on its own, but the real power emerges when they align. Together, they create the foundation for a consistent and compelling strategy that the rest of the constellation builds upon. The 4 Cs complete the structure of a comprehensive brand strategy by adding the context in which the brand lives. Category defines the space the brand occupies and the expectations customers bring to it. It shapes how people frame the problem being solved and how they compare solutions. Clarity in category gives the brand a foundation for relevance. Competitors influence perception as well. Customers understand brands in contrast to alternatives, so knowing the competitive landscape helps reveal where differentiation can be strengthened. The brand's meaning becomes sharper when the organization knows exactly what sets it apart. Company reflects the culture, values, behaviors, and internal practices that bring the brand to life. It represents the internal truth behind the external promise. When the company dimension is strong, employees deliver a consistent experience because they share a common understanding of what the brand stands for. Customer captures the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of the people the brand serves. It includes motivations, needs, emotions, and the patterns that drive decision making. Understanding this dimension ensures the brand resonates deeply and fosters lasting loyalty. Together, the 4 Cs provide the broader context that shapes how the market interprets the brand. When they align with the 4 Ps, the full constellation becomes clear, internally coherent, externally compelling, and strategically grounded. This image brings the entire framework together. The 8 dimensions form a structured constellation that represents how the market understands a brand. Each point captures a different source of meaning. Individually, these elements tell part of the story. Together, they create a complete picture of how the brand is perceived, evaluated, and chosen. The central value of this framework is clarity. It allows leaders to see the brand not as a constellation of isolated activities, but as an interconnected system in which every decision influences the meaning customers hold. When dimensions align, the signals reinforce one another. The narrative becomes coherent, the experience becomes consistent, and the brand becomes stronger, more confident, and easier for the market to understand. This constellation also becomes a tool for diagnosis and action. It reveals where the brand is clear and where it is fragmented. It highlights opportunities for differentiation, alignment, and growth. By visualizing the brand in this way, teams gain a shared language for strategy, one that connects internal behavior with external perception. In essence, this framework transforms brand management from a set of tactics into a disciplined system of meaning making. It shows the whole, not just the parts, and provides a roadmap for building a brand with intention and impact. Let's take a moment to take a look at the impacts of creating a brand using the Brand Constellation Framework. The framework changes the way an organization goes to market. The 8 dimensions bring clarity to positioning, messaging, and differentiation, and allows a team to design a go-to-market strategy that is aligned from the inside out. When the constellation is clear, every element of the launch or expansion, product decisions, pricing, channels, and communication support the same story. A structured constellation also creates meaning in the market's mind. The signals become more coherent, the narrative becomes easier to understand, and the brand starts to occupy a distinct place in memory. That clarity makes the brand easier to describe, easier to recall, and easier to choose. Internally, the framework strengthens communication. Teams across functions begin speaking the same language, using the same reference points, and working from the same understanding of what the brand stands for. That alignment reduces drift and accelerates execution. Over time, these effects deepen customer loyalty. When experiences, messages, and values cue contact and across touch points, customers feel a sense of consistency they can rely on. Consistency builds confidence, and confidence builds strong relationships. This is the first layer of impact that when a brand comes together and enhances customer loyalty. Applying the Brand Constellations framework strengthens competitive positioning by clarifying what makes the organization distinct. When the 8 dimensions align, the brand becomes easier to differentiate, and the market gains a clearer sense of how it compares to alternatives. Competitors no longer define the narrative, the brand defines it for itself through consistency, coherence, and a stronger center of gravity. The framework improves decision making. Leaders can evaluate choices through the lens of constellation rather than whether each action reinforces or weakens the meaning the brand aims to claim to build. This reduces guesswork and creates a structured way to prioritize opportunities. Decisions become more strategic because they serve a shared understanding of what the brand represents and how it should evolve. The final impact on this page is on resource allocation. When teams understand how the dimensions interconnect, they invest more wisely. Efforts in marketing, product, operations, and customer experience begin to support one another rather than compete for attention. The organization allocates time, budget, and energy towards actions that strengthen the constellation as a whole. That integration leads to higher returns on every investment. Working with the Brand Constellations network fosters innovation by giving teams a clearer understanding of how the brand creates value. When all 8 dimensions are visible, organizations begin to spot opportunities that weren't obvious before. New product directions, new experiences, and new ways of showing up that reinforce the brand's meaning. Innovation becomes more targeted, more coherent, and more strategically grounded. The framework also supports a long-term brand strategy of growth. When meaning is consistent across product, placement, pricing, and promotion, and reinforced by clarity in category, competitors, company, and customers, the brand becomes stronger over time. Strong equity leads to a higher recognition, more favorable associations, and the ability to command premium pricing. Customers' experience improves as well. By aligning the dimensions, the journey becomes more seamless. Each touch point connects to the next, and the promises made in communication are fulfilled in delivery. Customers sense that continuity, and it builds trust. Finally, alignment across the constellation ensures that the brand's external story matches its internal story. When values, culture, messaging, and experience reflect the same meaning, the brand feels authentic. That authenticity becomes a competitive advantage. strengthening credibility with customers, employees, and partners alike. A brand built on the Constellations framework adapts more effectively to market change. Because of the 8 dimensions give leaders a full view of how meaning is created, shifts in customer needs, competitive dynamics, or industry conditions become easier to interpret and respond to. The framework provides both structure and flexibility, allowing the brand to evolve without losing its center. It also strengthens the integration of data and insights. When each dimension is seen as part of a connected system, information no longer sits in silos. Customer feedback informs product decisions, competitive analysis shapes messaging, market data guides pricing. Teams can interpret insights in context, leading to smarter, more coordinated adjustments. Ultimately, these benefits drive business growth. A clear, connected brand reduces friction throughout the organization and in the mind. Customers understand what the brand stands for. Employees understand how to express it, and the market responds to the consistency. Performance improves because the brand becomes an engine of alignment, amplifying every investment and every interaction. That is the long-term impact of managing a brand through a constellation rather than through scattered parts. Some brands become so deeply rooted in culture that a single logo instantly evokes a universe of meaning. Microsoft, Apple, Disney, Google, Coca-Cola. Each of these identities triggers a rich constellation of associations the moment it's seen. The reaction is immediate because years of consistent signals have shaped how people think, feel, and talk about them. This is what happens when a brand becomes more than a product or a message. It becomes an idea held in the collectively in the market's mind. These logos represent far more than design. They point to stories, values, experiences, and expectations that have been reinforced repeatedly over time. The meaning is stable because it has been intentionally built across every dimension of the business. What they make, how they deliver it, how they communicate, and how they behave. Every brand at every stage holds meaning in this same way. The only difference is scale and clarity. Meaning forms whether the organization shapes it intentionally or whether it takes shape piece by piece through scattered impressions. The question is whether the brand you have today is the one you meant to build or the one that formed on its own. Creating a constellation across the 8 dimensions is what allows a brand to grow into something recognizable, distinct, and enduring. This is what the journey through these iconic brands mastered, and the same opportunity that every organization holds. A brand is an object, a intangible construct formed in the mind, just as surely as any physical object is recognized in the world. It takes shape when individual impressions, experiences, and signals connect into a coherent whole. That whole becomes a constellation of meaning held in memory and used to guide choice. Across this session, each idea has added to that understanding. Meaning is built from parts that come together, and the mind organizes those parts into patterns automatically. Whether leaders shape those patterns or not, a constellation still forms in the minds of customers, employees, and investors. That means every organization has a brand, intentionally created or unintentionally assembled. The 8 dimensions of the brand constellation bring structure to this process. Product, placement, pricing, and promotion shape external perception. Category, competitors, company, and customers provide the context that completes the picture. When these dimensions are aligned, they generate a consistent network of meaning that strengthens recognition, trust, and preference. When they diverge, the constellation fragments and the brand loses clarity. The central question becomes, what constellation are you creating? And more importantly, is it the one you want the market to see? The task of brand relationship is to shape those connections deliberately, just as the strongest brands in the world have done. Because meaning drives choice and alignment drives momentum. This is the role of managers, and it is their responsibility to create these connections. What is a brand? A brand isn't a logo, a tagline, or a campaign. It's a constellation of meaning that lives in the minds of customers, employees, and investors. It forms through every interaction people have with an organization, what the company believes, what it communicates, and how it behaves. When these elements connect, the brand becomes a coherent system of perceptions that guides how people understand and evaluate the organization. Strong brands achieve alignment across the 8 dimensions. Product, placement, pricing, and promotion work together to express value. Category, competitors, company, and customers shape the context in which that value is interpreted. When these dimensions reinforce one another, the meaning becomes clear. The brand becomes more than an image. It becomes an idea that directs actions, strengthens trust, and drives performance. Brands like Coca-Cola didn't arrive at this clarity by accident. Their meaning was created intentionally through consistent signals that shaped how generations came to see them. That is the essence of the Brand Constellations Framework. Understanding how meaning is formed, how associations link together, and how leaders can guide the process with purpose. Every organization has a brand. The real question is whether the meaning in the market's mind is the one the organization intended to create. When the constellation aligns, meaning becomes momentum. Thank you for being a part of this session on what is a brand. Throughout this conversation, we've seen that a brand is far more than design or messaging. It's a system of meaning, formed through what an organization believes, what it says, and what it does. When those elements align, the brand moves beyond marketing. It becomes an engine of trust, growth, and long-term value. Every decision, every product choice, every interaction adds another point of light to the constellation the market sees. When those points connect with intention, they create clarity. When they drift, they create confusion. The opportunity for any organization is to shape those connections deliberately, building meaning that endures and momentum that compounds over time. As you move forward, think of your brand as a constellation you continually are shaping. Lead with purpose, create with consistency, and guide the market toward the meaning you want them to hold. When meaning aligns, momentum follows. Thank you for joining this journey where meaning meets momentum.